Jayam Swaparam Swashrayam Sadasman Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Anand Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prince Kaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Govinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Girijavathan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. नवद्वीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी the भक्तवृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maha-Bharata, second part, chapter 27, scene 3. Bheema defeats Duryodhana. Upon reaching Samanta Panchaka, where Lord Parashuram previously had excavated a lake, filling it with the blood of the slain Kshatriyas, they formed a circle around a large expanse of flat sandy ground. Bhimasena and Duryodhana stood facing each other in the center. They challenged one another in harsh tones and roared in anger. Both were joyful at the prospect of the fight, each expecting a quick victory. They looked like an eastern and western cloud coming together in the heavens and thundering terribly. They hurled insults at each other, circling with their maces held at the ready. And as the fight was about to commence, awful omens were seen. Fierce winds blew up, and a shower of dust fell from the sky. Claps of thunder resounded in the cloudless sky. Meteors fell, and a dark circle surrounded the sun globe. Jackals howled, and vultures and crows cried. Loud voices seemed to boom out, suddenly rising and then falling in a fearful cacophony. Disregarding the omens, the two enraged fighters rushed at one another with their maces held high. They met like two furious bulls fighting with their horns. The two maces collided with a deafening crash, sending up a shower of sparks. Cheered on by the watching warriors, they exhibited graceful maneuvers, hurling their weapons and spinning around as they fought. And the gods, Gandharvas, and Rishis all came to witness the battle. These celestial beings marveled at the speed and skill of the two fighters as they sought out each other's weakness. For some time, neither could penetrate the other's defenses, and their maces clashed again and again, sounding just like thunderclaps. But as the fight wore on, however, they began to strike each other with great blows on their arms and shoulders. Hit hard by his opponent, each would then reel back, quickly recover, and return swift blows to his unguarded foe. Both knew every move of the other and displayed the full range of their skills to the wonder of the onlookers. Everyone who watched the fight gasped and cheered as the two warriors fought vehemently. Bheema's flying mace resembled Yamaraj's rod of death raised for the destruction of all creatures. It fell upon Duryodhana with a sound like the rushing wind. Duryodhana moved about with astonishing dexterity, evading Bheema's strokes and countering with terrific speed. Duryodhana's own mace moved with such velocity that it created flames of fire in the air. And by his superior skill, Duryodhana began to prevail over Bheema, repeatedly smashing him with forceful blows. Although struck again and again, Bheema stood his ground and appeared unshaken. Now, brought to the pitch of wrath, Bheema tried to strike back at his opponent with his iron mace, swinging it around with such speed it could hardly be seen. But Duryodhana expertly baffled Bheema by leaping high and dodging his blows. Duryodhana spun around in the air and turned somersaults as he eluded Bheema's wheeling mace. Laughing as he dropped back to the earth, Duryodhana brought his own mace down upon Bheema's head with great force. Although struck with such violence, Bheema did not move, thus making all the spectators cry out in amazement. Duryodhana seemed to dance on the battlefield, his mace continuously circling around him, protecting him on every side. Bheema found all of his attacks thwarted and immediately answered by the heavy counterblows from Duryodhana. Balaram applauded the skills of the fighters, but the Pandavas and their followers felt dispirited. They watched in apprehension as Bheema took a beating from the Kaurava prince. Bheema became infuriated by Duryodhana's evasive tactics. After being struck again by the Kaurava's mace, Bheema took several steps backwards and then suddenly spun around, whirling his mace waist high. Letting go of the mace, Bheema swung it by its long sling, and it rushed through the air with a roaring sound. Duryodhana was caught on his side and dropped to his knees in pain. Then a great cheer went up from the Pandavas. But Duryodhana, unable to tolerate the shouting, and empowered by his mother's mystic glance, immediately got up to his feet and shook off his pain. Screaming in fury, Duryodhana ran at Bhimasena and with a sudden maneuver struck Bheema on the forehead. But Bheema stood unmoved. Blood flowed from his forehead like temporal fluid trickling from the head of an elephant. Duryodhana was stunned to see his opponent still standing. Duryodhana then took a step backward, and Bheema, now seizing the opportunity, struck Duryodhana powerfully on his shoulder. Duryodhana fell to the ground like an uprooted oak tree. He lay there for a moment in a swoon as the Pandavas cheered and waved their weapons. Bheema waited for his dazed foe to regain his senses. He was amazed that his blow, which could have smashed down a mountain peak, had not killed Duryodhana outright. And within a minute, Duryodhana leaped to his feet. He was uninjured. His eyes gloated as he saw Bheema's astonishment. Queen Gandhari's ascetic power was something indeed. Duryodhana laughed loudly, then suddenly darted forward. Dodging Bheema's whirling mace, Duryodhana spun around in a complete circle and struck Bheema full on his chest. Bheema's armor burst open, and he flew backwards, falling to the earth with a thud. In awe, the celestials shouted and rained fragrant flowers on both the fighters. The hearts of the Pandavas now were possessed with fear as they saw Bheema lying on the ground. But in a few moments, Bheema sprang to his feet. Wiping the blood from his face, Bheema gazed at Duryodhana with bloodshot eyes. The two men paced, regarding each other with cautious respect, looking for the opportunity to strike the other. And as they circled, Arjuna quietly spoke to Krishna. "Oh, Janardhan, who do you think is superior in this contest? What is their respective merit?" Himself an accomplished mace fighter, Arjuna felt anxious for his brother. Arjuna had also noticed Duryodhana's apparent invulnerability, and so Arjuna could not see how Bheema would overpower Duryodhana. It seemed to Arjuna as if the Kaurava prince had the upper hand. But Krishna, who had saved Arjuna from many such situations, would surely know what to do. Krishna replied with a slight smile, "Oh, my dear Kiriti, these two have received equal training. Bheema is stronger, but Duryodhana's skill is greater, and he has practiced much more than Bheema. Duryodhana has also been blessed by his mother's ascetic power, thus making the contest uneven. Bheema will not win a fair fight, but if he resorts to unfair tactics, he will be victorious. Deceit in battle is acceptable against a deceitful foe. Why, even Indradev used deceit to overcome the mighty Asura demons Virochana and Vritra." Watching as the two combatants rushed again at one another, Krishna reminded Arjuna of Bheema's promise to break the thigh of Duryodhana, a promise which was later reinforced by the curse of Maitreya. Krishna made it clear that this was the only way Bheema could gain victory. "My dear Sabyasachi, once again you Pandavas have been placed in a perilous position due to the fault of Yudhishthira. The learned Shukra Acharya has stated that the remnant of a defeated army rallied and returned to the fight are always to be feared because they are desperate and fixed in determination. Duryodhana has lost everything and was ready to enter the forest. Yudhishthira should not have challenged him. So now Bheema must surely use unfair means to end this fight. Otherwise, the kingdom will again be lost, my dear Falguna." Krishna knew that Bheema was endeavoring to defeat Duryodhana by fair means before fulfilling his vow of breaking the prince's thigh. Arjuna understood Krishna's meaning, and so, catching the eye of Bheema, Arjuna slapped his thigh. Bheema nodded slightly in understanding, for this must be a message from Krishna. Bheema had not wanted to strike Duryodhana below the belt until he was overpowered, but perhaps there was no alternative. Duryodhana was fighting with demoniac fury, exhibiting every skill and showing no sign of fatigue. Nor did it seem possible to make any impression on Duryodhana, no matter how hard he was struck. Krishna's advice was Bheema's only chance. So Bheema moved about rapidly in front of Duryodhana, displaying maneuvers and baffling his foe. In turn, Duryodhana showed the full range of moves described in the ancient martial scriptures. The two men met savagely, their maces colliding with showers of sparks and huge cracks, momentarily deafening the observers. They fought like a pair of maddened tigers, sweat pouring from their faces, blood running down from their bodies. Now, again separating, they stood for some moments to lean on their clubs and regain their breath. Then they once again flew at one another with great yells. Both had smashed the other's armor and now were fighting only in their loincloths. Their well-muscled frames gleamed in the late afternoon sun as they swung, lunged, and parried. Now, taking a step backwards, as if to avoid Duryodhana's mace, Bheema suddenly hurled his weapon at Duryodhana, keeping hold of its sling. Duryodhana, however, anticipated the blow and thus sidestepped it. Now, catching Bheema with his arms outstretched, Duryodhana struck Bheema a powerful blow on his side. Bheema was winded, but he showed no sign of it, summoning his patience as he pulled back his club. Duryodhana did not realize that his opponent was disadvantaged. Exercising caution, Duryodhana did not aim a second stroke at Bheema. Recovering, Bheema narrowed his eyes and rushed forward. He swung his mace, and as he had expected, Duryodhana leaped upwards in the maneuver known as Avastan. Suddenly, Bheema stopped in front of Duryodhana and swung his mace chest high in a rapid arc. And as the Kauravat dropped back to the ground, Duryodhana was struck across his thighs. That blow carried the momentum of Bheema's forward dash as well as the full power of his two mighty arms. Bheema's club, which could only be lifted by 3 strong men, smashed Duryodhana's thighs like a thunderbolt, breaking a pair of huge trees. As Duryodhana fell flat, screaming, the earth shook. He lay there, writhing in pain. Now it was obvious. The war was over. All the Pandava forces roared in joy. Yudhishthir embraced his brothers, and Krishna applauded Bhimasena. Scene 4. Balaram condemns Bheema and blesses Duryodhana. The air was once again filled with strange omens. Showers of dust and bones fell from the sky. Fierce winds gusted, and a terrific noise issued from the bowels of the earth. The sky was filled with the frightful roaring of Rakshasas, Yakshas, and Danavas, while darkness enveloped the 4 quarters, and fierce beasts yelled on all sides. Still seething, Bheema approached his fallen foe. "O wretch, now recall how you insulted Draupadi, and how you committed so many offenses against the sinless Yudhishthir. Accept now the fruits of all your actions." Bheema then lifted his left foot and kicked Duryodhana, and with his foot placed on Duryodhana's head, he continued, his voice harsh. "By the ascetic penance of Drupada's saintly daughter, you lie here and your army crushed. Let all those who saw Draupadi dragged into the assembly hall witness now your defeat. All those who insulted and disregarded the Pandavas are finally slain." Seeing Bheema standing with his foot on the head of Duryodhana, many of the Pandava warriors were shocked and they cried out. Witnessing Bhima's abuse, Balaram was filled with rage. Already aghast at the way Bhima had struck Duryodhana down, Balaram called out, "Fie on Bhima! How has he struck such a blow in a fair fight? No stroke should ever be aimed beneath the belt. This is the ancient rule. But this wretch has broken it. Such an act cannot go unpunished." Balaram then raised his plow weapon and ran at Bhima, appearing like Mount Kailas rushing towards the Himavat. Quickly Krishna pursued his brother and caught hold of Baladev. Encircling Balaram with his all-powerful arms, Krishna stopped Baladev before he could reach Bhima. Those two Yadu heroes beautifully shone and looked like the sun and moon conjoining in the evening sky. As Balaram struggled against his brother's grasp, Krishna said to him, "O hero, you should not act in this way. Bhima has served even our interests. The Pandavas are our friends. Indeed, they are the children of our father's sister. Duryodhana was their sworn enemy, and thus our enemy as well. Duryodhana's death was to be sought by us by any means. Furthermore, it was Bhima's solemn vow that he would break the thighs of Duryodhana and slay him. The keeping of vows is always a sacred duty, and Bhima's vow was confirmed by the words of the infallible Rishi Maitreya. For all of this, O slayer of Pralamba, I do not see any fault in Bhimasena. Now, give up your anger and be peaceful, O foremost of men." Balaram gave a dry laugh. Krishna was always expert in providing arguments, but Balaram was not convinced. Still being constrained by his brother, Balaram replied, "O Krishna, in my view, Bhimasena has sacrificed religion for the sake of material gain, and this can never lead to success and happiness. O dear son of Rohini, surely you are famous for your devotion to righteousness. But there is no unrighteousness in Bhima. He has carried out his promise and requited the debt he owed his enemy. O powerful brother, you should know the terrible age of Kali is at hand, marked by fierce acts and the loss of religion." Balaram slackened, and Krishna released his grip on him. Still angry, Baladev said in a resounding voice, "Henceforward, because of this dishonest act, Bhimasena shall be known as a cunning warrior. The righteous Duryodhana, on the other hand, will be known as a fair fighter. The Kaurava king has performed sacrifice and given much charity to the Brahmanas. Having at last offered his own life as a libation into the fire of his foes, Duryodhana will attain the regions of lasting happiness." And with that, Balaram strode away from Krishna, mounting his chariot. His chariot driver urged on the horses, and Balaram sped away like a white cloud speeding through the heavens. Vahasi papushi vishadi vasanam jaladabham halahati bhiti nilatayamuknabham keshavadvita haladhara rupa jaya jagadisha hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Keshava Drita Baladeva Rupa, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Scene 5. Yudhishthir consoles Duryodhana. Krishna consoles Yudhishthir. Bheema folded his palms and bowed his head as his martial teacher left. Bheema had stood passively as Balaram rushed towards him. Death at the hands of Balaram would have been glorious. After watching him ride swiftly away, Bheema now turned once again to Duryodhana, who was almost fainting from the pain. Bheema raised his foot to kick him once more, but Yudhishthir caught hold of Bheema and said, "O mighty hero, desist. You have wreaked your vengeance and gained your ends, either by fair or foul means. Now let him be. Do not act sinfully. Duryodhana is a king. He is your kinsman and lord of the Kurus. He is now ruined, his brothers all slain. His kingdom is lost, his troops destroyed. And look at him, reduced now to such a pitiable condition. So how can you offer him more insult? People always say that Bheema is righteous, so do not act in a way that is not becoming, my dear brother." Restraining Bheema and kneeling by the side of Duryodhana, Yudhishthir spoke to the Kaurava. "O brother, you should not grieve. Truly, you are suffering now the terrible consequences of your own deeds. This, O king, is the universal law. No one can avoid the results of their actions, either in this or the next life. Surely, everything has been ordained by the Creator himself, responding only to our desires. Through your avarice, pride, and folly, you have suffered this calamity. Having caused the death of all of your brothers, sons, companions, and followers, now you must meet death yourself. Millions of heroes have gone to the abode of death. You must follow them, O hero, for such is the course of Daiva, destiny." Yudhishthir felt genuine compassion for Duryodhana, seeing him as a foolish younger brother. Wanting to comfort and console him, Yudhishthir spoke on. "You are not to be pitied, O Kaurava, for you have met an enviable death in righteous battle. No, it is we who should be pitied, for we will have to drag on in a miserable existence, devoid of our friends and kinsmen. Alas, how will I see my relatives' widows overwhelmed with grief? O king, you are departing from this world and going to the regions of bliss, while on the other hand, we will have to remain in this world of pain and suffering." Yudhishthir sighed, and tears rolled down his cheeks. He stood up and walked away from Duryodhana, who said nothing. Yudhishthir's sentiments were noble, but they only gave the Kaurava more pain. He did not want to be pitied. Screwing up his eyes, Duryodhana lay gasping. Krishna, who had also disapproved of Bheema's abuse of the fallen Duryodhana, went to Yudhishthir's side and spoke consolingly. Placing his divine arm around his shoulder, Keshava said, "O king, you have won a great victory, so do not grieve. All of this has come about, ordained by inevitable time itself. Duryodhana has been consumed by the fire of Bhimasena's anger. The war is over." His anger now subsiding, Bhimasena moved away from Duryodhana and stood before Yudhishthira, addressing him with folded hands. "O king, this earth is now yours, with all of its thorns removed. He who was the root of these hostilities, that wretched and deceitful being, now lies on the bare ground. And all of those sinful men who supported Duryodhana and uttered cruel words towards us are now slain. The earth, filled with riches, today approaches you as her lord." Yudhishthira then embraced his brother Bheema and replied, "Yes, indeed, the war is now over. Duryodhana is overcome, and we have conquered the whole earth through Krishna's instructions. And by good luck, you, Bheema, have paid off your debt to your mother as well as to your anger. And by good fortune, you are victorious, and your enemy killed." All the Pandava warriors roared and waved their upper garments. Some twanged their bowstrings, others blew their conch shells, others beat drums and laughed loudly. Jumping about and sporting, they praised Bhimasena, applauding him for striking down Duryodhana and even for placing his foot on the head of Duryodhana. But suddenly, Krishna held up his hand with disapproval. "O kings, this is not right to kill an already slain enemy with such words. This sinful, shameless, and covetous wretch has received the results of his own folly. Now he is no more. Why, he has become just like a piece of wood. So we should regard him as neither friend nor foe. No further energy or thought should be expended on Duryodhana. Now let us leave this place at once. By good luck and good fortune, the wicked and cruel-hearted Duryodhana is slain along with his ministers and counselors." Jaya Govinda, Jaya Gopala, Keshava, Madhava, Dina Dayal. Dina Dayal, Prabhu, Dina Dayal. Dina Dayal, Prabhu, Dina Dayal. Shyama Sundara Kanaya Lal, Girivarat Hari Nanda Dulal. Nanda Dulal, Prabhu, Nanda Dulal. Nanda Dulal, Prabhu, Nanda Dulal. Achyut Keshava, Sri Radha Madhava, Govinda Gopala Hari. Achyut Keshava, Sri Radha Vallabha, Govinda Gopala Hari. Hari Haraye Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Govinda, Jaya Gopala, Keshava Madhava Dina Dayal. Scene 6. Duryodhana accuses Krishna. Duryodhana heard Krishna's words from where he lay and hauled himself onto his elbows. Supporting himself with difficulty, Duryodhana contracted his eyebrows, looking angrily at Krishna. Like a snake spitting out venom, Duryodhana spoke. "Oh, son of Kamsa slave, it seems you have no shame, Krishna. Have you forgotten the sinful way by which I was defeated? How could you? It was on your instigation that Bheema struck his sinful blow. Do you think I didn't notice? It has been by your deceitful machinations that so many heroes have been unfairly killed. Bheema, Drona, Karna, and Bhurishvara were all killed thanks to your cunning. Without your wily advice, the Pandavas would have stood no chance in this war." Gasping in pain, Duryodhana dropped back to the earth, his face covered in perspiration. As he lay there, panting, Krishna replied, "O son of Gandhari, you have been killed along with your brothers, sons, and kinsmen only because of your own sinful deeds. You fool! It was I who requested you to return the Pandavas' fair share of the kingdom. But out of sheer avarice, you refused. You have committed so many wicked acts against your own cousins. And when you insulted the sinless Draupadi in the assembly hall, why, you should have been slain right there and then. It is for that crime that you are now killed. O you sinful wretch! And for the crime of assailing Abhimanyu in an unfair encounter, you were also thus slain. You have never respected your elders, nor heeded their advice. Thus do you now lay here on the bare earth. Do not rail uselessly. You are suffering nothing but the consequences of your own evil deeds." Racked with pain, Duryodhana's voice croaked in response. "What do I care for your words, Keshava? Having studied the Vedas, having performed sacrifice, given charity, and having governed this earth, I am now dying a glorious death. That end, which is always sought by virtuous Kshatriyas, is actually mine. I have enjoyed all pleasures worthy of the gods, and have attained the highest prosperity. Who can be as fortunate as me? So with all of my brothers, I will ascend to heaven, while you Pandavas will remain here, torn by grief, and continue to suffer." And as Duryodhana spoke, a shower of fragrant blossoms dropped from the sky. Gandharvas and Apsaras played musical instruments and sang, while the Siddhas cried out, "Praise be to King Duryodhana!" The celestials looked with wonder at the scene below. Duryodhana's fall before Krishna was all auspicious. Although the Kaurava remained envious towards Krishna, the mere fact of his contact with that eternal supreme deity conferred upon him the greatest possible blessing. For everyone killed in the presence of Krishna doubtlessly reached regions of everlasting happiness. As celestial music filled the sky, a disembodied voice called out, "Bheema, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, and now Duryodhana, all have been killed unfairly. Hearing this, the Pandavas felt ashamed. Remorseful for the way the 5 heroes had been slain, they looked at Krishna. Seeing their affliction, Krishna reassured them, speaking in a grave voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds. O best of men, do not grieve, for there was no other way these men could have been slain. In order to do you good, as well as for lifting the burden of the earth, I applied my illusory powers so that victory would be yours. In a fair fight, it would have been impossible to slay those Atiratas. Why, even the guardians of the universe would not have succeeded. Do not feel guilty for the deceitful way they were slain. Such means are acceptable when one faces a powerful enemy, especially when that enemy is itself deceitful. Ultimately, all the Kauravas were followers of Duryodhana, and thus they were all as sinful as he was. So for this reason, they have been defeated, and you, O virtuous men, have been crowned with success. Krishna's heartening words were met with roars of approval from the Pandava warriors. All 5 brothers, who were ever acquiescent to Krishna, felt consoled by the Lord's arguments. Seeing that the sun had set, Krishna suggested that they return to camp. Headed by Yudhishthir and Krishna, the Pandavas slowly departed, leaving Duryodhana where he lay. With both of his thighs now shattered, Duryodhana would not live much longer. Awaiting his death, the prince lay back, moaning in pain. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Atlada Dayane Hiranya Kashipo Vaksha Shilatankana Kalayi Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimho Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha Bahir Nrsimho Hridayi Nrsimho Nrsimham Adim Sharanam Prapadyi Namaste Narasimhaya Tabakara Kamala Barai Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Nrsimha Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadish, Jaya Jagadish, Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Harayi Namaha, Hari